Welcome back to Healing Conversations with Gloria Liebecker and Ingrid Gumby. Today we'll be exploring in episode 10, how do you make repairs? And so just starting with making a repair, we're not talking about a tire here. We're talking about the human heart. And so how would you describe making a repair, or what are the components of making a repair?
Okay. Well, I suppose in order for us to need and want to make a repair, there's going to have been some kind of rupture. So maybe we think about, what do we mean by a rupture? We're talking about ruptures in connection between us and another being. So where the flow of I suppose to refer to our last conversation, that sense of being in resonance with that other being gets disrupted in some way. And that doesn't have to be a big blow up. Those are probably the ruptures that we might think most immediately of when we think about breakdowns in resonance and connection in relationships. It could be subtle. It could be a drifting. It could be something that triggers us that we perhaps aren't even aware of in the moment has triggered us. But our reaction to that is to withdraw slightly. And so now there's distance and perhaps some coolness where formerly there was closeness and warmth. So all of those things could be ruptures. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just to be really transparent, because that's kind of what we like to do.
Yes.
We're going to share a rupture that we've had, and just even to acknowledge how that can come about, really unexpectedly, and innocently.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah. So in this last week, it's just been the last week, right?
Yeah, or maybe a couple of weeks, because I think time's been moving rather strangely as we've come to the end of this year. Yeah.
It has. And so Ingrid and I, we've been talking about some different possibilities of what we might do as we collaborate with one another. And we have several different things that we dream about, and we've got on the books, and we're drawing it out. And and there was one that all of a sudden I realized a couple weeks ago that, oh my gosh, we talked about this happening in January, and it's halfway through December. And I had a little unknowings to me. I actually had a little bit of panic about how am I going to get this together, because it was something I was actually going to go forward with for some groups I'm working with currently. And I wanted to be able to honor that. And so I reached out and I put something together really quickly from what I remembered we talked about. And I said, can you get me some copy today? Please. And how was that for you to receive, Ingrid?
Well, so it was Sunday here, and I have been really, really trying to protect my Sundays for rest and spending time with my family and my herd. And so my initial feeling when I received that email was, and then there was a little bit of, it's Sunday. And so I acknowledged both of those feelings, and I think I messaged you back and said, it's Sunday. I can't remember exactly the wording, but can I get back to you tomorrow?
The next day.
Yeah. And I think I also said that I was really needing to prioritize rest or recharging. And of course I also went into a bit of a process of Oh, that was I what? Once I actually had a look at the email in more detail and thought, oh, hang on a minute, and I had this little bit of panic, which was about something like slightly different from what you were feeling panicky about, because what was happening for me I was thinking, yes, we talked about this, but it was for me still more at the this is a good idea, but we need to work on it some more and confirm. Um, you know, who's the audience, what kind of content are we going to be producing on an ongoing basis, and um, and how are we going to roll this out. So a whole bunch of things were still sitting there kind of unresolved for me, and so I had this feeling of panic, because I suppose the story I was telling myself in that moment was that I was being pulled along into something faster than I was ready. And so I was very aware of how important it is for me to have time and space with new things, to really feel into them and feel comfortable with what's being done. And I noticed that I had a bit of a tendency to make that wrong. And then my reaction to making that wrong in myself was to make the other person wrong. So I was watching all of this unfold in myself, you know, because of course if there's been a rupture, someone's in the wrong, right? And if it's not me, then it's you, and if it's not you, then it's me. And so it was such a perfect perfect illustration of all of the kind of mad spinning that goes on inside me when there's a rupture, because our relationship really matters to me, for so many different reasons, and so, as well as the panickiness about being pulled along into something too fast, there was the panic, grief about the possibility of disappointing you or losing our connection. So all of that was in play in this, you know, relatively minor rupture. Yeah. All of that was there.
And so so again, then there was a little bit of life happening on both of our ends.
Yes, that too.
And so then the next day I hadn't heard from you. And so I then kind of catastrophized inside of myself of what's happening. She was going to get back to it first thing in the morning, her time. Well, that would have been before I went to bed, my time. And I haven't heard from her, but I've got to go to bed. So I wrote you a note, really concerned about your well-being, wanting to know, did something unexpected come up? And then the next morning when I got up, I was able to receive your email that you explained that you'd had a really full day. And then you also were able to kind of unpack the way that you were holding this piece that we were working on, or that we were exploring together. And as I read that, I'm like, that's not what I was holding at all. That's not the way I perceived it. And there was disappointment. And then I had my own dismay and like my own emotions inside, and like, well, gosh, now what am I going to do? And it's like, so taking the time in that moment to just slow down and notice my own felt sense, and how my own pattern of when I draw close to someone and there's really a lot of trust, and then there's a miscommunication, a misunderstanding of how it's held, that again, like, well, my tendency was to just go, well, I'm just wrong, and you know, like, that person doesn't want to play with me anymore. And it's devastating in the moment, but to catch it, to really have practiced this way of being, to recognize that part of my heart that was so tender, and that was going to confabulate a whole lot about it unless I caught her. To really catch her and to take the time to do some depth processing for myself around that, to unpack that. for that implicit part to that's an internal repair that we can make, that
Yes.
we really actually need to take the time to do in order to then reach out to this other
Yeah.
being that we had the perception or the projection upon them.
Yeah.
And so that really opened up a whole new vista for me,
Mm.
is recognizing, oh, well, if this is how Ingrid's holding this, then I'm wondering what I'm holding. And it's like, oh, then I opened up a whole new exploration and there was a whole new pathway available to me. Well,
Mm.
it doesn't end that other pathway. It's like, well, I wonder what's going to happen with that one then when we actually
Mm.
explore it now.
Mm.
But so
Mm.
now there was like more, there was an abundance that I could step into.
Yeah.
And yet, I, at the same time, I didn't respond to your email because in that moment too, I felt like I just was like, now I'm really under the gun to actually create what I'm now inspired with in order to meet the needs of my people that I'm in
Yeah.
service of. And
Yeah.
so what I loved though, I don't know, maybe we'll just pause and see what it was like for you to have this pregnant pause from me, because I didn't respond to you for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, I think possibly I, yes, there was a pregnant pause. And so I noticed um, that I was filling that pause with a whole lot of stories about what might have been happening for you. Um, and the two the two biggest stories were that you were really hurt and disappointed, um, or that you were really mad with me.
One or the other.
One or the other, of course, because
Yeah.
yeah. And so I was observing those stories and knowing that they um, were stories rather than the truth. And I also was wondering uh, whether, so I was also thinking you probably were processing and probably also really busy. And in being able to acknowledge those as stories, and as you were saying just before, to catch the little flares of worry or sadness or agitation that would come up around it for me, I was able to leave it for a couple of days, maybe, I think, and then I wanted to reach out to you and check in with what might be happening for you. And so there was a kind of internal accompaniment process for me going on over that time, that then when I still hadn't heard from you after sort of 2 or 3 days, I sent you another email checking in and making some empathy guesses for what you might be feeling and needing.
Oh, and
Yeah.
when I received those, my whole body relaxed. And all of the storyboard that had been confabulated by my default mode network was like, oh, guess I was wrong. I do matter. There is an enduring relationship, and um, it was so lovely to receive that. The tenderness and the caring and the compassion and spot on empathy that just really opened my whole sense of self, and for me to be able to then respond to you
Yeah.
and to own what I was doing and say, yes, let's catch up with each other and explore how this is going to take place. And what I love about it is this is what we're doing. We haven't actually had
Yes.
to unpack this until
No.
now. So what a beautiful opportunity we've had.
Yeah. Yeah.
To do
Yeah.
that and
Yeah.
to experience I don't know, there's a strengthening that happens when we make repairs.
Yes.
That if we didn't have that experience as young ones,
Yeah.
It's never too late to have.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can grow those enduring relationships of trust.
Mm.
And when you have a human connection, you're inevitably going to have a rupture on
Yeah.
some degree.
Yep.
And when you repair it, it's just like pruning roses. You make the stalks, they're stronger, they're thicker, they're
Yes.
more
Yes.
vibrant,
Yes.
and it
Yes.
grows the strong roots of trust.
Yes. Yes. And it's, I always think of that as happening on two levels. So one of which is, well, maybe there's more than two. There's two in my mind at the moment, because one of the things that I think I've been afraid of for the longest time is that when there's a rupture, repair is not possible.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, not truly possible. That the relationship will always be damaged in some way,
Mm-hmm.
and that um, that comes in part from the second part, which is being afraid that I don't have the skills or the tools to make repairs. And those two weave together. So one of the things that I love about kind of working with you and learning with you and our friendship is the way that we get to practice the tools for making repairs that really work and
Yes.
that do strengthen relationships, rather than leave them kind of with like a stool with one leg that's slightly shorter than the others, and slightly
Absolutely.
askew. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So just even slowing down to acknowledge the importance of catching those inner parts
Yeah.
and to be able to actually hear them in one another
Yeah.
in order for that compassionate understanding to emerge
Yeah.
and to acknowledge the needs under there that, as
Mm.
you're naming, and as I was naming, that those were
Mm.
not met
Mm.
in earlier life experiences.
Mm. Mm.
And yet, because we have this neuroplasticity within us, and as we learn how to embody our compassionate witness, our essential self,
Mm.
that part is with us to help us reclaim
Yeah.
the different fractured parts of our soul so that we can be whole.
Yeah.
And that's what this is all about.
Mm.
And as
Mm.
we support one another in this way, it
Mm.
strengthens us both to
Mm.
then support those we serve in
Yeah.
this way,
Yeah.
and our families and all our
Yeah.
relationships.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I would really highlight too the power in the repair process of um,
Mm.
inviting um, sharing of feelings and needs.
Mm.
And sometimes that means making guesses, because the other
Yeah.
person may not be able to, or they may not actually even be willing to have the conversation with us. They may be doing this still. So we can actually do that as an internal process too, and both naming our own feelings and needs and making guesses for the other person's.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, and in my experience, when I do that, when the other person is not ready
Mm.
and I'm wanting it,
Mm.
then there's something there for me to recognize within myself of why am I
Mm.
so desperate for it right now,
Yes.
that I'm wanting to put pressure on this person now,
Yes.
and to take time with that. And when
Mm.
we finally get to that deepest need within ourselves, in my experience, it opens my heart to have a
Yep.
natural curiosity about this other being
Mm.
and to begin to explore with compassionate understanding, make those guesses, as you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
And it's not about getting it right.
Indeed.
It's like, well, even the fact that you're making guesses, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
right there, it's the symbolism of my mattering. You're
Yeah.
making guesses,
Yeah.
and when someone makes a guess, it lets you know where are you in your roots
Mm.
of those needs.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
always giving information and clarity
Mm.
to know where we are
Mm.
when we
Mm.
when we check in. What is it that need?
Mm.
And
mm, mm,
I wish I had the email you sent me so I could read to people how beautiful was the empathy guesses that you made, and how healing that was for my heart.
mm,
You know,
mm, mm, mm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just strengthened the bond between us.
Yes.
For me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I love
Yes.
that you invited us to explore it here together, to model this as a way that we truly do believe in, and
Yeah.
it really is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Felt
That's what these
important.
healing conversations are all about.
Yes. Felt important. You know, and also because, as you named before, we actually haven't had a chance to sit down face to face virtually, um, and talk about what happened. So today felt like a really good chance to do that. Mm.
Indeed. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
Uh,
Me too.
so, one thing I'd like to name also is that when we have the courage to be transparent and allow our felt experience to be felt by another,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
there's magic in that.
Mm.
There's it's not what I've commonly experienced in my life, and I do believe it's possible. The more that
Mm.
we're willing to step into relationships like this, the
Mm.
more they will thrive.
Mm.
And we need more people to have the courage to show up authentically.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one last thing I would name about this, because I'm just noticing it in myself, is that just how completely the question of blame or right and wrong drops away when we
Oh,
come to this place of compassionate um, witnessing and accompaniment and understanding of our own feelings and needs and the other's feelings and needs. Mm.
absolutely. Then we have that
Mm.
heart connection that
Mm.
transcends it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is the
Yeah.
connection that we're
Yeah.
seeking.
Yeah.
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 So if people would like to reach out to you for that heart connection, Ingrid, how can they do?
Yes. Yes. Contact me via my website, ingridgunby.com.
Hmm.
How about you, Gloria?
Yes, my website is healingviewsanctuary.com.
Mm.
And I'd love to have a heart connection with any of
Yeah.
you, any of the
Yeah.
listeners.
Yes.
And thank you again, my friend.
Oh,
I
you
so
too,
value
Gloria.
our connection.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Love you very much.
I love you too.
Mm.
Till next time.
Yeah. Bye bye.